Welcome to Casual Temple, episode 19. I'm Jaycee, Merrily's husband. She doesn't have guests lined up this week, so I'll be asking her questions on the most thrilling topic of all, books. So, what are you currently reading right now?
Oh, I am currently reading a few books. I tend to read a few books at a time, so I'm reading the Book of Abramelin the Mage by S.L. Mathers. I might have gotten that wrong, but it's that main book that most people have read for talking about the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. And then another book I just started reading is The Magic of the Orphic Hymns by Tamra, Lucid, and Ronnie, Pontiac, and it's very cool. I've been listening to Ronnie have quite a few interviews where he talks about the Orphic hymns, and it's something that I use in my planetary practice, and that I know, Jaycee, when you're also doing planetary practices, you kind of use the Orphic hymns as well, as maybe in more of a recorded musical sense. And then third book, what is it? That book. Oh, and I'm reading the Book of Enoch. I started reading that one. That one's it's basically like reading the Bible, so it's very dense. But it's interesting. I think it's like an apocryphal text, so it's not part of the main Bible, obviously. And it's translated, so, you have that to work through. But I'm reading that, and then I'm also reading, or actually I'm meaning to start very probably in the mix of these three books is Mawiyah Bomani. She has a book called the Conjuring, the Calabash, and you actually drew me to her because you had seen her give a talk on Llewellyn's 2022 online convention that they did, and you really liked what she said, and I was looking into her, and yeah, she has a really cool approach to, she mainly does hoodoo, ancestral work, and then working with spirits of the land. So she has a lot of really I don't want to put words in her mouth, but from my observation, it looks kind of like an eclectic practice with a bunch of different ways of doing things, and something that's attractive to me because I tend to think my practice is also eclectic. So those are the four books I'm mainly reading right now.
So, do you read these simultaneously, or are you just reading a page from each a day, or how are you approaching juggling so much different material?
Oh. Well, I've kind of done this since I was a kid, where I would read a bunch of books at the same time, and then I would read one book, and then I would be like, oh, I'm kind of done with that, or done with that for now, because I kind of need to absorb what I just read, but I can also just pick up another book and then start it up where I left off in it. So I tend to read something for a while, and then it's not that I get bored, it's more like, okay, there's a lot here that I need to process, but I also have a lot of books to read, and I like reading, so I'll just pick up another book. And yeah, I think a lot of people have trouble kind of doing that, and that's fine, because I'll literally have be in different stages of the book and just pick it up, and I'll recall what I had read previously, so I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, so I just kind of have I call it the rotating pile of books, and then I'll finish them when I finish them, and some take longer than others. I'd say Dune, I know this isn't part of what we're reading, but I read Dune a couple years ago, and that thing took me a year and a half to read, but because I was there's a lot to digest in it, and I had to pause reading it and picking something else up. But yeah, that's kind of how I tend to read.
Well, along those lines, the book that you mentioned about Abramelin the Mage is a Dover publication, and those tend to be facsimiles of things from early in the 20th century or from previous centuries. You find that a bit challenging to read things that are not in contemporary English?
Well, the Abramelin book is a translation by S.L. Mathers, so Samuel Mathers. It's actually fairly modern reading it, and he actually has very modern ideas. I think I even pointed out something too that I thought was pretty funny. Was he had a footnote because, the Abramelin book, I think it's supposed to be set, I'm trying to, I'm going to get this wrong, I should know it because I've been reading it, but I think the whole, recording of the book, of the history of the book, of Abramelin, is somewhere, I think, in, the 1300s, something like that. And so he's translating this manuscript that was already archaic, and Mathers is from the, I think, mid-18th century, mid-1800s, translating it, but it's still pretty modern sounding, reading for the most part, so I found it fairly easy to follow. Some folks might have trouble with it, I'm not sure, but there was a portion in it where he had called out, I think it was something women shouldn't practice this particular magic of knowledge and conversation with Holy Guardian Angel because they tend to gossip a lot. I think I pointed that section out to you because I thought it was hilarious. And then Mathers had a footnote and he was like, yeah, this is wrong. He was like, this is just ridiculous or whatever. He's like, that's not true, or So he's easily kind of calling out that it was ridiculous that women couldn't practice this particular magic because for whatever reason it was thought that women couldn't handle it or whatever. But it was pretty funny.
So they he's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? So which is the tendency for a lot of individuals these days to instead of sifting through things, they are take issue with one particular thing and then completely dismiss the rest of it. I think because you had said something similar about because you were reading the books by Dion Fortune, and obviously from her time period she has some backwards views that can.
Yeah, I think for Dion Fortune, I was reading the Mystical Qabalah, which I've read quite a few books on Qabalah, and these are modern books. I've not read the Sefer Yetzirah. I haven't read the Zohar yet, but that's coming. But sort of people talking about their systems of working with the Qabalah. But I really liked hers quite a lot. Her mystical Qabalah, just her approach to it really resonated with me. But I will say that there was. And it's not like you can read one sentence where she says this. It's more of I read I read the whole book, but I kind of get, she, putting together the different pieces of where she mentions things. And basically the sentiment was something the Western, the Western ceremonial approach to magic is the best one for spirituality, and, basically the West is amazing and yada 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 than the systems that came before. And maybe it was just poor wording or whatever, but I do think a lot of it you have to look at it in context of who Dion Fortune was, her station in life of being British, being of the upper class, of coming from wealth. She's also a woman, so there is that propensity to to put herself in a certain position, but there is there was just certain things where she would basically say something along those lines, but I don't know if it was just bad wording, but I was just I don't know, I don't agree with this, but I understand where you're the context of who you were and where you came from, but I'm not going to throw the rest of the book out because it's amazing. It's the most highlighted book I own, and I don't highlight books because I don't tend to want to do that, but it's something where I needed to highlight things so I can refer to them in my own practice.
So you would say that there's scrutinizing it, there's precious minerals amidst the dross, and it's not necessarily conducive to one's practice just to completely judge it as in a moral sense of this is good or bad material based on the in context views of a person at a particular time.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, there's plenty of these particular people, if you if they had shared sort of their personal opinions or thoughts on either politics or any sort of subject at the time, I guarantee you're going to disagree with it. I disagree with myself from 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So I just hope people would understand that, yeah, there's going to be some stuff, like I said, that passage in Mathers was really funny to me, that he even called it out, right? And, there's even stuff like maybe later on that, I'll find that Mathers says that I'm like, I don't know, buddy. But yeah, so every generation is going to find something where, we're kind of past this sort of way of thinking, right? And, just kind of move on with it and just take the things from it that you really resonate with. Like even like the Abramelin book, I'm taking my own notes from it, right? I'm reading it and taking a lot of notes because I'm like, okay, this passage here, this thing's interesting. Like even one of the rituals, and a lot of magicians have pointed this out in it, Abramelin, it calls for you using like a young boy of like 7 years old as sort of your personal psychic scryer, right? Because children under a certain age can see and sense things more readily than adults who maybe haven't developed their psychic powers, right? And then Mathers even calls that out. He's like, no, what do you do? No, we don't do that anymore, because it's weird and creepy, and children shouldn't be subjected to these things that, are for the adult's benefit, right? It's not really for the benefit of the child. So yeah, so even in that respect, like there's a lot of things that Mathers was questioning and saying, no, you don't have to do this thing. So I think that's, at least for me in my own practice, it's like, yeah, there's things you can look at and, it's not sacrosanct. You can't, you can't say, I don't agree with this. Like, I don't, or like maybe I see it from a different perspective and I might try it a different way. Like in this case that I'm describing about the, using a child as your psychic scryer, my opinion is that, and I think magicians are understanding this, is to develop your own psychic abilities and psychic senses, right? And that was, Dion Fortune was very much about doing that. So I think instead of having to have the experience relayed to you either by a psychic child or a seer like Edward Kelly and John, why am I forgetting his name?
John D.
John D. Edward Kelly and John D. Like, try to develop your own psychic senses. Now, maybe, you're not going to have the same maybe intense experience like somebody who has the sensitivity, but you would understand what your own psychic senses are, but you can trust that what you're experiencing is true, even if it isn't as quote unquote strong as somebody else might be experiencing. But I think that is a way that some magicians are going forward with it, is to develop their own sort of psychic senses and sensitivities, so they can have these experiences for themselves.
Yeah, it reminds me of the what is it, the Greco-Egyptian magic, where they want you to go and find a severed human hand. Mm-hmm. You think like something like that could be reinterpreted in the now, like, oh, I'm gonna make a cake in the shape of a hand and utilize that instead of getting the shovels out or whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely like that. I think it was in the Black Pullet. It was something I had joked about in one of the magic discords I was in. I was like that whole thing kind of freaked me out or whatever. You would, take like a dead man's hand or whatever, and you would incorporate it in your magical spells. But like in your example, you can say, oh, okay, we're basically working with like materia from the earth, and that could be a cake in the shape of a hand, right? You don't necessarily have to have a hand, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure there would be arguments either way, but again, it's like, okay, yeah, I guess if you want like a certain type of situation to happen, maybe more quickly, more intensely, I guess use the hand, but I mean, it's kind of not cool. Just don't do it. Just use the cake and develop other senses or whatever you need from the outcome. It's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it seems a bit extreme. Even like in Bronze Age Europe, they're making carvings of body parts out of wood, mm-hmm. chucking them into sacred rivers, like hands and legs and whatnot, whatever part of your body that ails you. What was the thing about the belt made out of lion pelt.
Oh yeah, that's a one. I know there was one. I can't remember which magician. I always confuse these two magicians that wrote a book. But one of them used like he has a lion's mane belt, and whatever you think about that,
Yeah.
because he has it. Whatever, I don't know. That's his own decision to use that. But I don't know. I feel like there could be. That's why I'm kind of looking at the Abramelin book and taking my own notes, because I do feel like there's ways to accomplish the same effect if you understand understand what the goal is, but in the way to get there, right? Like one of the steps in the Abramelin ritual is further down after you do a lot of sort of your own body purification, where it's literally taking a shower, right? It's nothing crazy. You're taking a shower, you might like light some incense, but one of it is when you're not doing the particular rituals that are spelled out, you read spiritual books. Or it says to read the Bible, right? To read the Gospels, or not the Gospels, but to read the Bible. And so to me, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's not my book of spirituality choice, but maybe read books on spirituality, like we started talking about. Just do that, read about like maybe a specific track of spirituality that you're very interested in if you're approaching this ritual that you want to do. Like read a bunch of books on Buddhism or whatever. And, I think these things can be tweaked, especially for the modern age. And I know there's a lot of magicians that have kind of tweaked, they would probably hate me saying that, but tweaking the Abramelin ritual for the modern age, because it is a different time, right? There's different times, there are different things that are acceptable to do. There's different pools on our focus and attention. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
So it's more the essence of the material via like authenticity of things in its original form.
Yeah.
How does that relate to like the presentation and construction of books? Because obviously, like you mentioned a book that Dover published. The Dover books are really well bound for trade paperbacks, and they're usually on acid-free paper. But there's this tendency in recent decades to publish things as finely as possible. Like Smithsonian with the heavyweight paper, and maybe cold metal letterpress, fancy bindings, that sort of thing. Do you think what role does that serve to take that much care with a published work? Is it necessary, or is it just the material that is valuable?
I think it's again, there's sort of different approaches. My approach to it is like you really just want the information, but there's something about like I bought this particular beautiful book and this beautiful version of this book because I find that the information is of value, maybe even intrinsic value, right? Like it exceeds the value of the attention and care that was put into the actual binding. But if you get down to the bones of it, you really just want the information, really. Mm-hmm. And I think I told you we had talked about this, but it's kind of in a similar vein of like music, because we're both music fans, and huge. I really love post-punk music. I listen to quite a lot of it. I have a lot of it that are is digital. I have a lot of CDs. You remember those, kids. But I do collect like the actual vinyls of my favorite bands, right? Like my favorite bands, I will go and like I want the vinyl copy of it. And if they've had like a new pressing or a new like remaster or new art, I will buy it. If it's my favorite bands, I'm looking at you, the Chameleons UK, because like, that's probably the one I have the most of. But yeah, I think I kind of approach it in that way. like information first, but if it's your favorite or you find that this is valuable, you might want like a really beautiful copy of it.
Mm-hmm. I think we've encountered some things that are worthy of expensive binding, but are in like a really cheap format, and then on the flip side, there are some things that are just awful, and they're tarted up a bit. How do you feel about that? Because we have one particular book. I won't mention the title of it. It's the most beautifully bound book that I've ever held ever in my life, and I found it in one of those little library book drops in the neighborhoods, and it's the absolute worst book ever in history, though. It's probably not what you're thinking of, but worst book of the topic area of your podcast. But I keep it because it's the most magnificent book I've ever seen. I've handled it kind of roughly, and it still looks mint condition. I don't understand how they did this, but yeah, it's like there was no point, because as I said, it's complete garbage, but it's in a beautiful package. So what do you think about that? Why that happens, I don't know.
I feel with this particular, I feel like I want to say what this book is, but I won't, because you don't want.
No.
But in these particular cases, I feel like, buyer beware in a lot of cases, and I think it's marketing, right? Like, oh, this, because the marketing would be, oh, we made this beautiful book, with all the beautiful trappings of something that you want to keep forever, because the information inside is something that is powerful or meaningful or whatever it is, or the story was amazing. If it's like a nonfiction book that really resonated with you, you're going to want a beautiful copy of it. But they're tricking you. So buyer beware. They're tricking you with like the beautiful wrappings, and then you read the thing and you're like, oh my God, this is awful. Like there was one recently, like you and I were looking at, that we were like, I can't believe that this got made. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, but like the interior, like it was just terrible writing. So, unfortunately, and in those cases it's hard because you want to kind of read it beforehand, right? And there's a lot of, and I'll just say this too, there's a lot of friction with like downloading books and and all that stuff in these communities. And on one hand, I totally agree, like we want the authors to be able to make their money and this and this and this, but I do think that to do right by the readers, they really should have like at least a downloadable digital copy that's very, very affordable. And then, maybe even like pre-released, I don't know, I'm just going down this track, but like pre-released or something, then it builds up hype because you're like, wow, this was amazing. I read it. I thought this stuff inside was amazing. And then, and then they're like, a couple months later, they're like, oh, well, guess what? We're releasing the most beautiful edition with this and this and this on it. And you're like, yes, I want that or whatever. But I feel like there's a lot of push and pull and arguments about downloading books and, that sort of thing. I just feel like there needs to be a consideration because unfortunately beautiful books will be made, but then the interior is maybe not up to snuff or very useful for people going forward. So I feel like there needs to be a little bit more discussion around sort of these things. And the other frustration part is you have people who are like, I just really want the information and I can't find it unless I pay $400 for, I think, Ian was talking about that one book, the Red Dragon. We were talking about it in our interview, our discussion about the demonic reality. And it was like, oh my gosh, that book is like $500, but he has a copy that he bought when I think it came out, or maybe fairly recent after it came out. So more affordable than $500, but and he said it's an amazing book. But how unfortunate is it that we can't, I can't get a digital copy of it, or people can't read it first, or there can't be, so now that information that's apparently really wonderful is just now like kind of trapped in very few hands.
Yeah, there's one particular book that was actually written and published here in Seattle. Probably if you looked hard enough around here with the antiquarians, you might be able to find a copy, but it's impossible to get your hands on. But it's readily available in a pirated form. Usually piracy, I know you were talking about the PDFs and stuff like that. It's more of a delivery service problem. Like the piracy wouldn't exist because I believe people legitimately would like to be able to purchase things, as you said, and you can't because only so many copies were made. Yeah. And I get that, especially these things that they're bound in fancy buckram, or whatnot. And it's an expense, but at least maybe if they would move more towards pre-orders, as opposed to limited
and I think
editions.
Some of them do have the pre-order function, but I'm going to make the vinyl comparison because a lot of hubbub was made around like digital copies, and and they're I I don't have necessarily as horse in the race or whatever. So, but we have seen sort of the rise of vinyl again, right? That's kind of how music stores are able to survive, is because vinyl has just had like a humongous comeback.
Yeah, I mean it's the highest selling physical media currently. Yeah. Of music recordings.
Yeah. So, like I said, I want authors and publishers to make money for sure. I just, I just want the information, and I'll pay for it. I'll pay for the information. But do I need it in a $500, goat skin gold lemon, whatever it was, I don't think I need it that way. And yeah, I understand like they made the other copies of, they're kind of the standard editions or whatever, but even then they run out, right? There's only however 500 copies made, so it's very limited. But I understand, and like you said, I think pre-orders is actually a really good idea, and I don't know why they don't necessarily. I know some of the publishers have done sort of pre-orders for like the following edition. Like I think the way they handle it now is like they have the first edition run of things, and they do want those to be more special, and I get that. But then they'll do like second edition, third edition runs where they'll take pre-orders, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like I'm okay with that. But I think especially with these new books that are coming out, it's like new authors that you're not familiar with. Like you're really taking a chance, and they want you to like pop $50 on a book, and then you now have this really beautiful book that on one hand you're like I can't let it go because it's so beautiful, but it's so bad. Like it's just worthless. So now you have, you just created waste in your house, and now you have to either throw this book away, which is just a waste, and it's just kind of sad. You and I both love books, so it's hard getting rid of them, even though at some point you do have to, maybe cull your collection to some extent. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just makes, I don't know. I just feel like there could be different solutions that could happen for books.
At the very least, I appreciate when they offer different tiers of binding. You could get just like a square bound trade as opposed to things with boards or beyond that.
I think there was like I'm trying to look for it, but I have this book on, I think it's either Jinn magic or Arabic magic. And it's a great book. But they released it in just like a nice softback paperback, but then of course they had the nice beautiful editions of that book. But I think the paperback, I can't remember who the publisher is, but I think the paperback they make kind of perpetually, so it's something that the paperback won't go out of print, if I recall. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of nice, because then you still have like, you might want to read up about Jinn magic or Arabic magic, just, for your own edification. And now you're like, cool, I can get like the paperback and, look into it or whatever. So I think that's a good solution as well.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have way more access to publications than we did, say, back in the 90s, when you couldn't get your hands on anything.
Yeah.
You read the bibliography of and all these enticing titles and whatnot, and I'm never going to get my hands on that or whatever. But now you can, like I said, it's all there, whether it's actually in print or, people dangling pirated material in front of you, which is terribly frustrating. I think it'd be nice, as you said, if some of that stuff was available to purchase.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what else did I want to cover here? I think it kind of got off topic, just talking about the physical form of things. I think to go back to that yet again, it's just that kind of pertains to everything in practice, really. Whether it's like you can just, is it all in the mind, or do you need it in also in physical form for it to,
Is that a question?
I don't know.
Or
Do you
statement?
think maybe both?
Oh, okay.
Is that like a balance of things? Like, it's not complete unless something is either or. That's why I brought up the things that didn't necessarily need a special printing because they're terrible.
Yeah.
But but something that's wonderful. It's almost like it's almost there, because like even when the material is perfect, if it's terrible present, there's been a number of books that I wanted to read, but I didn't because it was they chose an ugly typeface. I just couldn't get past it. It like sears your eyes.
Yeah. Some of those old Dover magic books, they have like a terrible typeface.
Yeah, I mean, that can't be helped though, because those are photographs. As you said, it would be an expense for them to remaster them and print them. I think some people want the look of the old-fashioned typefaces, and is something inaccessible if it's in a poor format. It's like you said it's about the words themselves or whatever, and the ideas, but like if you can't bear to cast your eyes on it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, because there's been some of those. I think even like those Dover books. I think like I mentioned like the Zephyr Yetzirah. Like I think it is like a Dover publication, but it's hard. Like the font is like kind of bubbly looking, and it's sort of hard to like it's hard to read because it's so weird looking.
There is a way to remaster and a facsimile by laying digital typefaces or fonts on top of them, but no one's really tried that yet. I think that would go a long way of like satisfying the desire to have something that looks archaic but is a little more legible.
Yeah, I think they do a good job. That's why I kind of like the Kindle books, because they are things on Kindle. I tend to get a lot of books on Kindle too, because then it's just it's all the same type of font.
Yeah, I think you can load your own too if you.
Yeah. So it's pretty nice.
Okay, let's see. I'd like to get back to you mentioning that you're juggling several books at once. Do you tend to choose things that are related in some fashion, or is it always just a random hodgepodge of things?
It's kind of random, but it depends on like right now I read a lot of like spiritually based books, I guess. So it's just like I'm going through I'm reading a bunch of spiritual books.
Do you ever notice any synchronicity of disparate material where they, at first flush, it doesn't appear that they have anything in common, but you notice a through line to what you're currently reading?
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to think, like, what would that be? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say, but yeah, I can't point at certain examples, but it is definitely the case. Like, I'm like, oh, this is kind of odd that this is something that was mentioned over here. Oh, actually, I do have an example. So, like, Todd Wilcox, again, he was a guest on the show, and his book is like Slipstream Shaman. And I had asked him if he had read Soltram Elione's book on feeding your demons, because there is like a thing that he uses in his practice where he talks about how something that was helpful, like say a helpful spirit or a helpful entity, is no longer helpful. It's kind of actually hindering you for whatever the reasons are. Like, it's now kind of not bad, it's just like hindering your practice. And so in Soltram Elione's, she kind of looks at it as like demons are, she doesn't even talk about them being previously helpful, but like demons can be like an energy that you can personify and work with and kind of get to the bottom of like why it's still kind of hanging around and what it actually needs from you, so it can actually transform into and transmute into something new. And so I was kind of drawing very similar parallels to kind of what Todd was describing, even though he's like kind of doing it from his freeform fashion. But yeah.
So maybe like the mischievous behavior is more out of neglect and boredom and interaction, as opposed to malevolence. It's like something like, notice me.
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially a Soltram Elione, like the book Feeding Your Demons. It's like the things that are the quote unquote demons in your life, or the things that are causing you issues, or the things that you're not paying attention to. So in like your example, it's like a child that wants attention, right? You're not giving these things attention for whatever the reasons are. You have your reasons or whatever, but now it's like either causing you some sort of mental, malady, or an emotional, issue, or maybe physical issue, like, or even just like patterns that keep repeating in your life. Like one pattern would be like you keep stepping into the same type of destructive relationship, right, with somebody, and it's like, why do I keep doing this? And it's like there's like something that is trying to get your attention, like this needs to change. It wants to be something new, but you're not like letting it talk to you and letting
Back to the topic of books, there's a lot of accounts of people being near bookshelves or in a library or bookstore or whatnot, and books flying off the shelves and smacking them in the head as if they like want to be read. What do you think about that?
Well, I kind of have like a weird like, I was telling somebody in one of the magic discords I was in, I was like, I feel like just even having these books, like you don't even need to necessarily read them in your house. Like having them in your house is an energy, right? It is like putting that energy in your house. I know people would be like, you got to read the books to like, yeah, I do think, on some level, if you want like a conscious understanding of the book, but I do think there's some sort of subconscious thing of like having that book in your house, like, some sort of energy it's giving off. So now in the example of like it jumping off a shelf, I do think books have their energy, they have their life or whatever, and I do think the spirit world, or whatever you want to call that, is trying to get literally get your attention. And even if you're and a lot of people do the bibliomancy, right? So if a book does fall off a shelf like that, they'll open it up and then like close their eye and like open up a page and point their finger at it, and then most of the time people are like, wow, that was really, the passage I just read was really relevant to what's going on with me and gave me some new insight. So it's just another way of like it communicating with you. It being the spirit world or your guides or whatever you want to think is going on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the past year I kept we have Aiden Walker's books right over there, and they're together, and I kept finding them on the floor. I was like wondering I keep having to pick these up. They're like completely knocked off the shelf. It turns out one of our cats was constantly climbing behind that particular segment of the bookshelf and was always stepping on Aiden Walker's books and pushing them backward as he was going behind.
She wants us to read them.
I caught her in the act doing it, so I'm like, I think you already read them though, right? And I haven't looked at it yet, but you know how it is. There's a million things you haven't been able to read yet. In terms of, I think that's why I wanted to talk about the physical form factor of books, because even when something, say, it's firing on all cylinders, like the material is awesome, the construction of the book is gorgeous, but then you might have some trepidation about actually reading it, because you're like, oh, I don't want to get my sweaty hands all over it, and you know, treating it with kid gloves like way too preciously. That might be the downside of these expensive books. It's similar to how people who collect comic books treat them.
Yeah.
Instead of actually utilizing them the way what they're meant for, is, you know, to be read.
I think that's okay too if you just want to keep it as like a beauty piece, or you know. But I mean, ultimately, usually it has like an intrinsic thing. Like we have a lot of, like, I don't want to say action figures. We have a lot of dolls and action figures and things like that. But because we don't play with them, but they are like in a case, you know, like protected, or you know. And it doesn't mean that at one point we didn't either, you know, as children, you know, we play with them, or it's like a action figure of a rock star. Like we have a Peter Murphy like action figure thing that, you know. But it's more like, oh, this person or this thing is very important to us. We want to like memorialize it in like this particular form. So it's okay that it's like that. So in the same thing with like a book. If like, but I feel like, why have it if it's just beautiful? and you don't necessarily resonate with the content, is strange to me. But that is its own thing. There's our cat like clawing that thing.
Yeah, cats definitely have zero respect for books, though.
Yeah, our cats do, for sure. They chew on them all the time. So.
Chew the corners, knock them off the shelf, lay on them, crumple them, smash them. That's what they do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a particular reverence for books. Obviously, you recently visited Ireland, and they have like the Book of Kells in a climate-controlled.
Yes, it's in a dark room, in a glass box with one light on it. But it's cool because it's like, oh, this is very important. It's very, you know, there's a lot of reverence around it, and I'm like, that's cool, you know.
Is it always open to the same page, or is it periodically?
I mean, I'm guessing
turned to.
I'm guessing it's open to the same particular page. It's probably the one they find is the most beautiful or meaningful one.
I forgot to check to see if it's been photographed and uploaded, because in recent years, a lot of museums have photographed their collections and have made them available open source. So it's worth looking at. You know, it's a resource that they didn't really have until just very recently. Also, in 2020, during the so-called lockdowns or whatever, the JSTOR opened up access to articles. I don't know if that's still going on, though. I mean, it should be open to people because we paid for a lot of that research, but that's another free resource where you can look at academic papers and whatnot.
Yeah. I think there's actually one, I think it's on JSTOR, that somebody had shared recently about experiences of light hallucinations in meditation. And then that was really cool because, like, you know, I do a lot of meditation and you definitely experience a lot of like lights happening and light activity. So I think it was a JSTOR article on that.
Yeah, a lot of that material was heretofore behind a paywall. So trying to think. What else I want to talk about? I think I've gone off on too many tangents. What's something that you have on the shelf that you really, really want to get to, but you just haven't found the time to?
Oh my gosh, so many. I'm like looking over here. The Book of the Black Cube is one about Saturn. It really, or is it? Oh, sorry, the Cult of the Black Cube is about like Saturnian cults. I think. I really want to read that. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, I need to read that. And then I have there's one on the celestial intelligences. I want to read that too. There's so many. I want to read this. This is terrible. And then I have started like looking through I think it's David Alter, he translated the Hebrew Bible that you had made me aware of, and we bought a copy of it. It's beautifully, oh my gosh, beautiful. So, but for that one, it's kind of quote unquote easier for me because sometimes in my meditation practice, I'll pull it out and just start reading a practice, or you do the bibliomancy where I'll just like flip through it and like, feel when I should read a passage out of it, or if I heard like a particular Hebrew name or something that like kept coming up recently, I might open that one up and look at it and read through it, but it's quite nice.
Came in a smashed box though.
It's Amazon for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I can't think of anything else to ask. I think I'm about tapped out.
Okay. Well, thank you for preparing all these wonderful questions, honey. And yeah, thank you.
Your support means the world to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with others who might find this content valuable. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more enlightening discussions. Your engagement helps us grow, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being a part of the Casual Temple community.